My name is Tyler. I'm a Boston native. I work in, I'm a master of props in the theater industry here in Boston. I'm here to see the Pixels props panel. I want a professional interest.
Okay, and how did you find out about it?
Well, this is my third year at PAX here on for PAX East, so this is by far the #1 reason I came this year.
All right, Matt.
Tools. By the way, thank you all for coming again. So my goal with the next few set of slides is to kind of give you guys a very practical approach to tools you can use to build sort of anything. And actually, can I have the next slide, please? What I'm trying to demonstrate here is when you think about drilling a hole, all of these tools can accomplish that. And what I try to show in this graphic is over on the left is cheap and time consuming. And as you move to the right, they become more expensive, more precise. They'll also do things faster. But at the end of the day, they can still all drill a hole. So what I did over the past couple months is I paid attention to the tools that I use day in, day out for building stuff up. And when I did my Arkham City grapple gun, the tools I'm about to show you I used almost exclusively to build the whole thing. So I guess my point is that with the tools that I'm about to rattle off, you can sort of build anything. But if you wanted to expand and get more expensive, what you gain is precision and time savings. Next slide, please. The Dremel tool. Can I have a show of hands? Who does not own a Dremel tool?
Firing squad, please.
First order of business when the con is over. If you plan on doing any building, is get a Dremel tool. I would say if there's one tool that's absolutely the most versatile and necessary to building things, it's a Dremel tool. I've actually got a couple attachments picture here. There's a router, there's even a drill press attachment. Just a really versatile tool, and with different attachments you can kind of do any kind of grinding, cutting, shaping, sanding, anything. Great tool, please get one.
It doesn't have to be Dremel branded.
Yeah,
I have a Sears one.
It can be a Moto tool. Yeah. Dremel, it's kind of like Kleenex or Zero. Yeah. It's just a general term. Blades. I tend to bounce around between 3 different types of X-Acto blades and a one-sided box knife. And they're great for anything. You can cut anything with them. We talked about styrene earlier. You can score and cut. You can whittle. You can do pretty much anything. And a Dremel can't do that. So get a set of X-Acto knives. Next one, please. Coping saw. This is another really versatile one. I don't need a scroll saw. I have a coping saw.
I would love to see you cut through a sheet of MDF like that.
I've done it. Well, you've got like a 6-inch window. Yeah. Again, it's a really very versatile tool. You can get different blades for it. And this is like a great example of the tool where this is kind of the most primitive form of that. You can only go up. Like the next step might be a scroll saw, or then a table saw, or a band saw. There's all kinds of things to expand on your cutting capabilities, but if you start with a coping saw, there's really a lot you can do. Drill. This is actually the most expensive piece of toolery in my entire deck. So if you don't have like an electric drill or cordless drill, again, just a very versatile tool that you can do a whole lot with. Next, please. Files are actually one of my favorite things to use. I do some things with files that I could probably accomplish better with like a coping saw or a Dremel. But what's great about files at different granularities, you can get a lot of precision. Where with a Dremel tool, you can very quickly knock something down too far. With a file, you can tend to plane something, bevel something much cleaner. So I recommend a decent set of files. And honestly, that array of files, I think I got at a hobby store for like $12 20 years ago, and I still use the same files also. They tend to last. I get a ton of use out of a T-square with a straight edge on it. Like a couple, I think all you guys use like Illustrator to draw stuff up, right? Yep. So I'll draw something up in Illustrator and like glue it down to a piece of MDF. But when it comes time to cutting a really precise straight edge, I'll use the edge of a T-square to cut it out. And don't go cheap on a T-square, because I found like the stuff at Michael's tend not to be really true. It'll be off a little bit. So don't skip.
The caliper that you got on there, the dial caliper?
Yep.
I have one of those, and I use it all the time.
Yeah.
If you have something, if you have two pieces that need to fit, and one piece has like a dovetail sort of thing, and you have to fit it in there, you want it to be as exact as possible, you can measure the inside and outside of the two pieces to make sure that they're as close to exact as possible.
And you notice mine's analog. Like I also have a digital caliper. I never need it for handwork. Like when I do machining, I'll pull the digital caliper. But for something like if you're just doing something by hand and you're sawing and filing, the analog caliper, which I think costs you like $15 or something at Sears. Very nice. Thank you. I'm a huge fan of Adobe Illustrator, but as mentioned earlier, there are other products available, either freeware or other software. If you really want to look up for Corel, you can, I guess. And again, this is kind of something where the process I would do is I would find a picture or some reference online, bring it into Adobe Illustrator, and then just trace out the shapes, scale it up to the size I want, print it out, attach to MDF, and go from there. Bye guys, sorry. Putty and fillers, we touched on these a little earlier, safety first, remember? I've actually, perhaps controversially, just abandoned using Bondo very recently.
Nice. That's sacrilege.
I find it to be, it's a little tacky, I can't work with it as well as something like the Evercoat, which is another glazing putty product, but you get a much smoother consistency, it sands much cleaner. Bondo's just kind of chewy and gooey and I don't like it, so sorry guys. But yeah, putty just a really essential part if you're going to be filling stuff or smoothing stuff out. Luckily, stuff you can find at Michael's. I get kind of embarrassed when I go in and buy that 2,000 count box of popsicle sticks because they think I'm going to go home and make like a giant bunny rabbit out of it or something.
Well, you do that too.
What, you know, I've actually found that I actually make tools with popsicle
I do that all the time. I make sanding like files and
Absolutely,
stuff.
you can glue sandpaper to them. I find myself, I'll cut them at an angle to pop bubbles out of curing resin, or I'll twist them up to get like a weird edge I can use to clean clay off something. It's a very versatile tool to add to your toolkit. Just glues, a lot of this stuff is just off-the-shelf stuff. I prefer not to use exotic glues because sometimes they're caustic and not fun to breathe. I stay away from stuff like barge because you can die pretty quick. So most of the stuff,
It's one negative aspect.
it's a great adhesive, lovely adhesive, very strong bonds, but you know, cancer. Most of the stuff I use, you can get at Home Depot. I love two-part epoxy because you can kind of stick anything to anything. In fact, we were having a discussion the other night about sometimes you find materials that aren't like materials. Like what would I use to glue wood to metal? What's best? And is there a website for that?
It's called This to That.
Yeah, thistothat.com.
I find that's a very common problem. There are actually some materials that I use on purpose because they repel a certain adhesive. Like I can shape an adhesive into something by using something that it doesn't stick to. So knowledge of materials and adhesives and how they work together is something you really build up over time over experimentation as you go around.
Something like the Bondo Squish.
Exactly.
Which I actually learned from one of your videos.
Oh, very good, thank you. Good to know.
Looks
Too bad
good.
I don't use Bondo.
The Evercoat Squish.
Yes, yes. Sandpaper also very common. Harrison wanted me to mention sandpaper actually does fill up. Like you can't use the same piece for 20 years like my files. So don't be afraid to throw sandpaper away if it fills up quickly. Next one. And this is kind of the punchline. I built a mill for when I was building my Arkham City grapple gun because I didn't have a tool that could cut all those little slots. In the
Scroll saw.
A scroll saw accomplish that? I challenge you to a duel, sir. So using the tools you just saw, I built a singular purposed mill. The only thing it's good for is cutting those 9 slots in that thing, but it cuts them very accurately, very precise to the depth I want, spaced the way I want. So I guess that's sort of the punchline, like using a very primitive set of tools, you can expand your own tool set to build stuff that a tool might not necessarily exist for.